Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Where the 99 Leads. I'm Andrew Joyce, your host, and Where the 99 Leads is a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, where we'll talk many different subjects throughout the course of the year related to the University of Pikeville, the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, construction going on around campus with the Kentucky College of Optometry. We talk academics, athletics, and today we will focus on one of our fall athletics teams, the UPike women's soccer team. Joined by Gary Warford, women's soccer coach at UPike. Gary, welcome in.
Hey, glad to be here, Andrew.
Always great to have you here once again. Another season upon us. You've already gotten the season started. We'll talk a little about that. But first, let's talk about Gary Warford. If someone's tuned in, they don't know Gary Warford. One of those few people that don't know Gary Warford. Let's introduce them. Tell us about your background and your arrival here.
This is actually going to be my sixth year here in Pikeville.
Yes.
I came by way of being a high school teacher, and before that I had spent some time in the military. But I picked up soccer at an early age and continued playing and coaching, and went from high school coaching to college coaching, and have been doing that since 2010.
Very good.
Came here as an assistant coach, and now I've been the head coach. Now this is going on my fifth season.
And you spent some time in the classroom as well.
Yes, I was an assistant professor in education for the past 5 years, but this is the first year I'm not teaching. I'm spending my time teaching on the soccer field itself as a full-time head coach.
And that makes things a little different in your role. You were wearing two hats, now focusing on soccer. And the soccer programs at the University of Pikeville, still in their infancy, really, in comparison to other programs throughout the Mid-South Conference. You've got national powers that have been around for decades that are playing soccer in the conference. How tough is that?
It's difficult, but recruiting has really picked up over the past few years because we're starting to make headway as far as competing in the Mid-South Conference. And we're getting our name out there, so more and more people are recognizing University of Pikeville as not just a basketball or a football school. They're seeing it as a women's soccer and a men's soccer program as well.
Gary Warford, the semester, and another guest, we'll go ahead and introduce. Michaela Hyden, student assistant at the University of Pikeville. And Michaela, before we go any further, let's talk about your background and your arrival here at the University of Pikeville. How do you land in a role as a student assistant?
Well, Gary brought me here as a player. In 2013, I came on my fall season year. This season, I was unfortunate enough, I had suffered a concussion last year that still gave me issues, so I had to medically retire, and Coach was gracious enough to let me, stay a part of the team. That was my main focus. I love this team, I love this program, so it landed me a student assistant position, which goes well for me because I'm a sports management major and hope to eventually break through and become a head coach someday.
And what year are you in?
I'll be a senior this year.
Very good. Michaela, let's talk about your playing background before the University of Pikeville. Talk about your playing days.
My playing days, I've played for, this would have been my 17th year, rec all through when I was a kid up until high school. I played for Campbell County High School up in northern Kentucky.
Right.
Loved it. We were competitive. You still have those games you remember.
Sure.
Here, played as a defender for Gary, and basically wherever else he needed me to go. Had a few injuries, but I was always ready to go when he called me up, and just always wanting to get out there and play my best.
The quality of soccer in northern Kentucky is very good.
It's a little too good sometimes. It's a little too competitive, but growing up, that's all we knew. That's the sport up there for girls.
Sure.
It's that and basketball.
It's extremely competitive, and we've seen a lot of great players come through there. That's why Gary Warford spends so much time in northern Kentucky around soccer fields, that people know him well, with a lot of recruiting going on there. Student assistant, not a player.
No,
How different is that for you?
It's a lot different. At first, it was just kind of switching gears from getting the mentality of a coach, instead of how how I should play, it was more of how they should be playing, are they in the plan that we came up with? Are they in the shape? Things like that. And now, I'm starting, as the season goes on, I see things happen. It's like, dang, I wish I was out there. But at the same time, I know that me taking a step back and being able to see things, I can communicate with the girls what they need to do, what they should be doing.
Even if a medical issue causes you to give up playing, the competitive juices are still there on game day, huh?
Of course.
We can still relate. I don't think they ever go away, huh, Coach?
They don't.
I don't think so. Coach Warford, the semester in soccer season's well underway. Just wrapped up a hard-fought loss as we were beginning our taping today. Since many student athletes are the first to arrive on campus during the summer before classes begin, you've had plenty of time to get to know your players and this team. Coach, tell us about this year's team.
Well, the additional time was definitely needed because we graduated 9 seniors last year and had a couple that transferred out for different schools for different reasons to fulfill their educational purposes. But we have so many new players, junior college transfers, traditional freshmen that have come in, and international players that we needed additional time to really get to know each other.
Sure.
And we added an additional week to our preseason. Normally it's 2 weeks of two-a-days. This year it was 3 weeks of two-a-days, just to make sure we could get everybody together on the same page.
And you talk two-a-days. Talk about what that schedule's like for the players. Talk about what that schedule's like for you as a coach. You talk about two-a-day practices, and many of us that have been in any type of summer camp, we can relate to what two-a-days are about. But talk about what the schedule's like for those players.
Typically, the first practice will begin at about 5:30 in the morning, which is usually, that's bright and early.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that didn't realize, 5:30 does come twice a day. 5:30 a.m., he said. That's commitment from the players and from the coaches involved.
Yes, it is. Well, actually, as a coach, I'm up at 4 o'clock so I can get to the field to do field prep and walk the field and make sure it's safe for our student athletes. That's the first practice. Depending on which group you're in, we like to do individual sessions as well. There's a 10 o'clock session that lasts about 45 minutes, and then we bring it all together in the afternoon, about 3:30 for about an hour and a half session as well.
Very good. It's hard work. The team spends a lot of time together, and we hear many stories about teams having chemistry, bonding, playing well together. That's where it all starts.
Indeed it is. That and the fact that we started our season off in Florida. So we spent about 30 hours on the bus driving down to Florida, so that was some team bonding.
Yeah, players get to know each other real well, spending that kind of time on a bus, traveling to and from. Certainly, you learn things about your teammates you didn't necessarily need to know or want to know. But it truly is a bonding experience when players come together like that.
Definitely.
Mentioned you spent some time in Northern Kentucky. You've had recruits that have landed at the University of Pikeville, like Michaela, that have come from Northern Kentucky, a highly competitive area in Kentucky soccer. Let's talk about the recruiting process this past year.
This year we still focused on Northern Kentucky, but we broadened our horizons out. We have several players from out of the state of Kentucky. We have Washington State. We have Ohio, we have Canada, we have Belgium, we have the Netherlands, we have Germany, we have England. I mean, we have really broadened our recruiting process because there's so many people trying to get from a pool of athletes in Northern Kentucky that it's becoming more difficult to recruit from that area. So even though we're still getting athletes from Northern Kentucky, we're expanding our horizons to look more internationally, look at junior college transfers, and look at people out of state as well.
Right. And of course, you look at local players as well. Here in the mountains, there are players that want to continue their career. They can play at this level. Eastern Kentucky, late arriving to the game of soccer. It's still very young. The University of Pikeville's program's young, but high school soccer in Eastern Kentucky is very young as well. It's not, you mentioned you've been playing 17 years, Michaela. There haven't been 17 years worth of soccer in Eastern Kentucky. It's new to the game, so the developing talent is not caught up with the rest of the state either, has it, Coach?
Not yet, but we're starting to see more and more club teams develop here in Eastern Kentucky, and we have several players on our team this year that played for EKFC, for instance. That's the big club in this part. Sure. That they've come in and they've really dedicated themselves to the craft of soccer, and it shows on the field of play.
Right, and that's where soccer is so different than maybe some other sports that might have travel teams and things like that, the club sport, because the high school season is so short that the club sport, the teams that play year round, even with the indoor game during the winter months, is certainly a difference maker. I have to ask the question because there's someone tuned in right now that's wondering, how does Gary Warford recruit a soccer player from Washington State?
We have several services that we use that connect me with players that fit our profile.
Sure.
As far as their academic profile, their athletic profile, and you call them up, you talk to these players, you talk to their parents, and actually the young lady from Washington State, she and her mom actually came to University of Pikeville, visited,
Right.
loved it, fell in love with it. We fell in love with her, and she decided to come here. So it was, it's a lot of time on Skype. It's a lot of time watching a video of these
Right.
players because obviously I'm not going to fly out to Washington State or to England or to Germany. So a lot of it's just spending time watching tape and talking to these young ladies on Skype or on the phone.
But you talk about the international players as well, Canada, Germany, Belgium. You've got these players from around the world. There are other schools in the Mid-South Conference that have had the international recruits for some time. And the international game is a little different than the game played here.
It is. American soccer is a little more physical, I think. And so by going out and getting more internationals, that's really increased our awareness with our technical ability as well. So now we're going to meld the American style of play, which is more physical, with
Right.
the international, which is a little more technical, bringing that together and hopefully getting some success this year.
Recruiting high school soccer players, club sports soccer players, international players, always a challenge. Recruiting never stops. I would imagine you're still recruiting even during the season.
It's 24/7. I'm constantly on the phone, internet, email, whatever it takes to make sure we bring in the next best U-Pike Bear.
Gary Warford, women's soccer coach at the University of Pikeville, our guest, along with Michaela Hyden, student assistant, former player, and due to injuries, forced to give up the game that I can tell by you talking about it, a game that you love, that you have a great passion for. Majoring in sports management, which I think is an incredible career. So many different directions you could go. Have you ever thought about going into coaching?
Yeah, it's actually the top thing I'm looking to do once I get out of here. I'm constantly on NAIA, NCAA, looking at different, since I live in Northern Kentucky, I'm close to Southeastern Indiana, I'm close to Southern Ohio. So looking at their high school programs and seeing if there's something I can connect with their clubs, even though I know now I'm not going to be able to apply for a job and secure it for next year, just kind of knowing what's out there, where I can go, and seeing, what opportunities can lead into. And
You're getting some great experience as a student assistant, being able to see that side of a soccer program. And Coach Warford, a great example for you to learn from. Tell us about your role as a student assistant. What are some of your responsibilities?
a lot of what I do is making sure the girls understand what's going on. So coach comes up with our practice plan, he hands it out to the coaches, and we look over it, we set everything up, we get everything going, and while he's also watching, we're also watching. But if something, he can't see everything. I mean,
Sure.
he's one man, one set of eyes. He's got me and a few other people who we come out and take our time to, if we see something that needs corrected, we stop the practice or whatever we're doing and we fix it. And it helps us to expand our knowledge, and it helps, we have more, instead of like a 30-1, we have like a 15-1. And it helps him and, just make sure we're all on the same page and getting to that goal of winning and competing highly in the conference
good.
this year.
And you're still very competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Before we went on air, ladies and gentlemen, we had a discussion about a recent game the University of Pikeville women's soccer team was participating in, and we had a chat about competition and close games and wins and losses and officials. And like any former player, whether they're a coach or not, we all have discussions about officials and
Oh, yeah.
blown calls and losses that we can't blame on them, but we do nonetheless. It's competition. You still have that.
Oh,
That's wonderful. Don't ever lose that.
Thank you.
Even as a coach, take that with you. Coach Warford, I know you've got it as well. We talked a little about bonding, bringing a team together. You lost 9 from last year. You've got newcomers coming. You spend 30 hours on buses going to Florida. That's obviously, you're going to get some bonding whether you want it or not. Talk about some other intentional acts to help this team bond together?
We've had barbecues, we've had team events that we do to try to make sure we stay together. We have things planned like pasta dinners and movie nights and things like that we're working on.
Yeah.
And things throughout the year, even once the season's over. I mean, just because the season's over, hopefully we make a nice run in the Mid-South Conference tournament. It's not goodbye to our students until next fall. They're going to be back in the spring for a spring season.
Sure.
So team bonding is something that's year-round.
Absolutely, and every year in small college athletics, you have turnover. You're going to lose some players. You'll have new players coming in, and that's a new challenge every year. Gary Warford, women's soccer coach at the University of Pikeville, our guest, along with Michaela Hayden, a student assistant with the UPike women's soccer team. And, of course, you do play a fall schedule. It's underway now. You mentioned a spring schedule as well. What's that like?
Typically, we will play 2 or 3 matches. Mostly in the beginning, it's back to physical fitness and agility, speed and agility. And then the latter part of the spring, we play 2 or 3 matches against either club teams or other universities.
Very good. So it's becoming a year-round sport.
Definitely.
And recruiting, of course, always has been.
And we use that as a recruiting tool. We try to play teams that are located in hot spots, so to speak. Like this spring, we're going to go play Northern Kentucky University. Hopefully, we're still in negotiations with that. But of course, Northern Kentucky is a hotbed for recruiting, so that would be adventurous to us to go up there and do that.
Very good. Michaela, we've talked about your transition from student athlete to student assistant. What's that been like? What's been the toughest part of that for you?
Probably more seeing my teammates now as more as like a player that I can communicate, different thoughts to. I'm used to being able to be like, hey, when you're out here doing this, like I usually do this, but now it's kind of I see you doing this, why don't you try and, do something a little bit different. It's different having to approach each other on a different scale rather than, when I was a player and I was on the field doing like fighting and competing with them.
How have they responded to that?
I think it was a little hard for all of us at first just because we weren't used to it,
Right.
but it's definitely gotten better as time's gone on, and these girls will always be my teammates at Hearts, and I care for all of them the same way, I would if I was a teammate.
Coach Warford, let's talk about the strength of this team. You've talked about the way that the team has evolved. You've got international players now coming together with players from Northern Kentucky, from different parts of the country, the international game joining the American game and all that goes along with that. But let's talk about this team, the strengths, and how the season's going so far.
One of the primary strengths we have, even though we have a smaller senior class, I think that they bring experience to the table that has really bled into the rest of the younger players that have come in addition to our junior college transfers that have come in with 2 years of eligibility left. They've played 2 years in college, and they've brought that experience in as well. And just the overall fact that everyone on our team wants to get better.
Right.
The strength that they know that they're not perfect athletes, that they're students of the game, and every practice is competitive, and they're looking to learn and to gain their knowledge base.
You talk about growing this team, smaller number of seniors, but a more experienced team. As you bring in junior college players, as your players that you've recruited come in and spend some time in the conference playing the college game, that experience continues to grow.
Definitely, and the Mid-South Conference is definitely the most competitive conference in the NEIA.
Right.
And a lot of the JUCO players and new players are going to get a taste of that on Saturday because we played Georgetown.
Right.
But they've seen video, they've seen tape of the conference, so they know what to expect. But it's definitely a little faster and a little more physical than other conferences in the country.
Very good. Do you have thoughts on this year's team? How do you compete in the conference?
I'll leave that for the end of the year.
Very good.
I truly believe, though, because of last night's game, and I've been saying this after every match that we've played and after every session, I'm like, guys, it's going to come. When this team clicks, something beautiful is going to happen. It's going to be like a symphony.
Right.
And when it happens, it's going to be so fantastic. And last night, we got a glimpse of that, of what we can be. If we can do that continuously throughout the season, this team is going to make history.
Very good. You talk about the Mid-South Conference opener coming up on Saturday as we record, Saturday, September 12th, and that match takes place where?
We open up at Georgetown College at 6 p.m.
Next home game, I'm putting you on the spot. You may not have that on the tip of your tongue.
Asbury on Tuesday, 13th at
Okay.
3 o'clock.
Very good. We want everyone to come out and support this team. Of course, home games for the UPike soccer team played where?
We play at Bob Amos Soccer Complex.
Very good. Plenty of parking there. I think many of the soccer fans throughout the area know exactly where that's at. Coach Warford, good luck on a great 2015. Let's hope that it does come together. We look for history to be made.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it.
We want to go ahead and book a show for the end of the season, okay?
Let's do that.
We want a part of that. Michaela Hyden, student assistant at the University of Pikeville with the women's soccer team, our guest as well. Michaela, let's talk about your plans after graduation. Obviously, you're thinking about coaching. You head back to Northern Kentucky or that general neck of the woods?
I'm thinking about it. You know, there's a lot of options, not just in Kentucky. So I'm looking, kind of following the job market wherever it can lead me. Go back home would be nice, spend a little time with the family, been away for a while, but at the same time, I know no matter where I go, it's going to be what I'm supposed to be doing, and my family will have my back no matter what. And maybe I'll get to stay here and coach with Gary longer. It's all, you know, got some time to think about it.
Very good.
You're definitely getting some OJT because when I'm there at 4 o'clock in the morning, Michaela's there at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I meant to ask that question earlier. If that was part of the student assistant role, is that early wake up too?
That's part of it.
On the job training. Michaela Hyde, have a great senior year in the classroom, and best of luck to you in your future.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us. Coach Warford, good luck against Georgetown. Always go Bears.
Go Bears.
Coach Gary Warford, women's soccer coach Michaela Hyden, student assistant, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Leads. It's been brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia. Thanks for tuning in.